It's another day live at the Waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I will be your host for the next 3 hours, where I'm really looking forward to chatting to all of you today. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, you know what to do. If this is your first time, then I'll tell you what you can do. You can either comment on the YouTube chat, or you can head over to the WildEarth website and use the question box that is available. We are currently looking at this wonderful live camera, which is situated in Kenya, in Old Donyo, which is basically on a private concession, if you will, that's over 100,000 hectares of pristine wilderness. And these are earlant and fringe-eared oryx that have come down to have a drink. We'll just give everybody a moment to hopefully join and maybe just start chatting. Good morning, Nancy F. Great to hear from you. I'm looking forward to some of your questions today, so please don't hesitate to send them on through. I'm going to wait for a couple more of you to say hello, just so I can know that. Otherwise, Nancy, if it's going to be you and I on a private Waterhole show today, which wouldn't be the worst thing, but of course, why not share this experience with many more people? So the earline species that we're looking at the moment is the common earline, which is widely distributed throughout Africa. And then you also get another earline called the Derby earline, but that occurs more sort of Central Africa and West Africa. I would love to see one. They're also known as the giant earline or eland, same. Oh, there's quite a few of you now saying hello. Jive Bunny, Dana, Cooksters, Billy Keating. Hi, everybody. Thank you for jumping on in. And Cooksters, you have mentioned that you love the hooved ones. So you love all the antelope species. I don't blame you. Hooves are such interesting things too. Such a hard material. And for those of you that don't know, they're actually walking on their tippy toes. So animals that do walk on their tippy toes are sort of designed to be able to run faster. So what you would call the fetlock on a horse, that sort of rounded part just above the hoof, that's actually the ankle. And we call these even-toed ungulates. It's just a large grouping for animals with an even number of toes, I suppose. And obviously the hooves are modified toes. Well, we have a special request from Dana. You're wondering what is the weather like in Oldonyo, so you know what's up next. Let's go check out. Well, Dana, as you can see, it's going to be quite cool around all the locations of the live cameras. And it seems as though there might be a chance of rain at Oldonyo, which would be most welcome by all of the animals, even if it's just a drizzle. It's wonderful how grass grows very quickly without much water at all. The zebra would definitely be happy, and so would the oryx. Seems like the oryx are not sticking around for too much longer. They're amazing species, though. They're so tough, they're hardy. There aren't very many other animal species that can adapt to harsh environments like they're able to. I mean, they can go days without having to drink water. Not that they need to worry about that in this area, because they're here all the time, drinking from the Oldonyo pan. And when they are out in more arid areas, you'll quite often see them performing something called geophagy, and sort of licking the earth, or even, I suppose the earth is probably a good way to describe it. And some areas are quite high in sodium, so it's almost like a salt lick. Ali, you said good morning. Terrific, Taylor and Tucker, and also Kambur. Kambur is fast asleep at the moment. He is a Labrador puppy. He's about 4.5 months old, almost 5 months old. And he is quite a funny dog. Got a lot to learn, but he's highly intelligent. And poor Tucker gets so annoyed sometimes with him. But they tire one another out, which is quite cool.
Hi, my name is Claire. WildEarth has been part of this home for many years as it connects us to the bush and the culture that we love and miss so much. I became an explorer so that other people around the world can get to experience the African bush in this unique way as well. I am beyond excited that I was drawn to win the prize at Ambakala Game Reserve for 3 nights. It is truly a dream come true.
Sign up today and you could be the one experiencing it for yourself.
Aren't zebras just such wonderful creatures? They really do stick out like a sore thumb. You can see why so many people add them to their bucket list. Normally zebra, giraffe, hippos, all of those animals. What else? Obviously, everyone wants to see the big cats, but it's so funny looking at the zebras. And they are a great animal to have around. We know that lots of animals like to associate with one another. But if I was a wild animal, I'd definitely want the zebras on my side, or I'd just follow herds of them and stick to them. Their eyesight is phenomenal, and they very rarely alarm for just anything. So when a zebra is giving its alarm call, it's a strange sound, they mean business. And then you should just definitely check in the direction that they're staring. There are lots of animals that aren't particularly reliable when making alarm calls. Squirrels are probably the most notorious for doing that. They just fake it. But then, of course, they've also call like that as part of their, I suppose, territorial demonstration to let any other squirrels know that this territory is occupied. But now they're gone. Bye, zebra. I can't believe there's no one else here. But it's a cooler day. Doesn't look like there's any rain clouds developing just yet. There is a bit of haze, though. I suspect a little bit later on when it warms up. Well, oh, never mind. I will eat my words. We've got a Thompson's gazelle. Just one of them. Grant's gazelles, which often you can get confused with, they're much larger and they don't have that big dark black stripe along their bodies. Their horns are also quite big. Bush Barbie. This is actually something that a couple of us safari guides and nature enthusiasts talk about. Do I ever wonder how certain herbivores would be as carnivores? It is crazy the in depth discussions that we have had late at night around the fire. It's actually quite funny. Um, and just imagine it's now you can obviously see why it is so important that we do have more herbivores, more prey species, if you will, and a lower amount of carnivores, because there'd be a huge imbalance in the ecosystem. So we are sometimes we see lions and other cat species and even hyenas ingesting grass, right? But we know that that's not necessarily for them to eat, but rather to encourage regurgitation. Although maybe wild dogs, because obviously maybe wild dogs might munch on it. Some of the jackal species, they're also omnivores, but they might prefer to eat fruit. Anyways, but imagine a little Thompson's gazelle like this, right? Like a pocket rocket. Would they stalk cheetah? The tables would turn because obviously Thompson's gazelle is one of the favorite animals for cheetah to hunt. That would be really funny. Cheetahs would have to adapt to climbing trees more frequently. They do climb trees, but not like leopards do. They'll often go up them to scan their surroundings. Lots of people say cheetah don't climb trees until you see them up in a big tree, and they definitely don't fly up there. So to just avoid all the antelope species or gazelle down on the ground. Can you imagine that? All the big cats, in fact, would have to just adapt very well. And then also to climbing rocks. But then you better be careful, because then you get an antelope called a klipspringer, and they live up on rocks. They're also small and can be quite feisty. So actually, no one will be safe. I suppose it's the same thing for the herbivores. I think the animal I'd be most terrified of is elephants. They've obviously got those long trunks. Imagine driving around in a safari vehicle, just enjoying yourself, having a good time, and next minute you come across a herd of elephants, and they're not happy, and they charge towards the vehicle, and they grab you with their trunks, and then who knows what else they do to you. I would not enjoy that. Elephants would probably then not be my favorite animal, because I'd just be so scared. They would be like living dinosaurs, basically. And giraffe. Sure, if you've ever seen videos of giraffe chasing vehicles, it's terrifying. You should definitely Google that. I'm sure YouTube would have a video to watch. But maybe, like we have habituated the predators in national parks and game reserves, perhaps we could do the same thing. I'd still be hesitant, though. I would not let the elephants and giraffe come anywhere near me. Hopefully, not hopefully, some of you may have experienced a really up close, intimate encounter with elephants. And sometimes this happens with lions too, where they'll just walk straight past the vehicle. Leopards do it all the time. But elephants, different story, because they look up and into the car. No thanks. I'm very grateful that that is not the case. Can you imagine a crocodile? Would they be grazers or browsers? Or frugivores and just eat fruit that falls from the trees into the water? Lots to think of. I'd like to hear your opinions, though. Maybe you can tell me some of the animals that you think would be either scary or quite comical, with the roles being reversed.
We love all the support. We read all the comments, and now we want to acknowledge our biggest fans. Do you know when Ribbon was seen last? Or the names of June's cubs? Do you remember the last time we were up close and personal with an elephant? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you are in for a treat. WildEarth's Fan of the Month. We are looking for you. For more details, make sure to read our monthly mailer and keep an eye out on our social media pages. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
find it again. Can we see it there? Just scanning, so it was right on the rim of the water's edge, and it was so camouflaged, but it was moving further to the right-hand side. Not so much this side, where the Thompson's gazelle was drinking. That's kind of where it was. I still think we need to go, yeah, there we go, let's keep going. Can't really see it other than a feather blowing in the wind. What's that there? Maybe it's just a stick. If anyone sees any movement, do let me know. No. It's probably just sitting there and we can't see it because it's so camouflaged. Otherwise, what we can do after here, we can maybe, while this pan is quiet, maybe we can scan on all the logs to the left, and maybe we'll see one up at the top trying to catch some of the warmth. I suppose there's not much sun today. Oh, look at that! It's a sandgrouse. That's a new bird for this area. Well, for our list. How beautiful is that? Oh, I think we... Sorry about that, everybody. We lost our Daniel temporary, but that was a black-faced sandgrouse. So I was actually just trying to find my notes where I wrote my bird list, because I'm definitely going to add that one. Now I've lost my pen. Oh, there it is. Okay. Black-faced sandgrouse. We don't get this species in South Africa. I'm trying to think. I have definitely seen black-faced sandgrouse in East Africa. Anyways, probably won't see a black-faced sandgrouse in Namibia. I say this, but I actually have no idea. And now we're at Okakuyo, which is one of the most famous areas, or this waterhole's quite a famous area too. And then we have other species of oryx, the common oryx, or gemsbok, and a couple of springbuck. I wonder where the Corey bustard is. We've had some great sightings earlier, a couple of weeks ago, of Corey bustard, but I haven't seen one here for some time. Nice clear day. Unlike Old Donyo, it does look like there's also a little bit of a haze, but perhaps that will burn away as the day continues. That's kind of what is happening here with me. Yeah, Hoedspruit's also had some overcast days, but by midday, it's hot. All the clouds disappear. Kathy Lee, goodness, you've got a very creative imagination. I didn't even think of that. She said, imagine coming across elephant-sized dwarf mongoose and then an entire colony of them. No, thank you. Can you imagine? I'm okay, thanks. They would eat lions whole. They'd pluck leopards from trees. Peter might be able to outrun them. That's also terrifying. So dwarf mongoose are actually... Well, yeah, dwarf mongoose are the smallest carnivore. But that would terrify me, to have them so large. Imagine giant birds. I also imagine a shoebill stork the size of a giraffe. No thanks. Oh, and speaking of birds, oh man, there's a grey-headed bushshrike that has just landed on a bush willow very close to me. I'm sitting outside today. Normally I've been sitting inside, but it's a little bit cooler now. Yeah, where I live, it's filled with wildlife, even leopards. And so I have to sit outside and supervise the dogs because I don't trust. There's a young male leopard lingering around at the moment, and he has eaten a couple of dogs. So I've got my fists up, and I will fight him if I have to. Very protective over my animals. Can we have a closer look at the gemsbok that are now going into the water? I'll have a drink. Very close. Those are kudu. We'll take them. Their legs look so white in comparison to the rest of their bodies. Although it's normal for kudu and many other animal species to have color differences, it just helps with breaking up the solid shape. Having stripes in different colors helps you blend in. And 3 young kudu bulls, 4 young kudu bulls, I can't count. Also, apparently I'm blind. I have the eyesight of a warthog, not of a kudu or a zebra. Just quenching their thirst, but quite nervous. I find that the springbuck and the oryx don't seem to be as panicky as the kudu. So they feel vulnerable being out in the open, with them preferring denser vegetated habitat. Those young kudu bulls are still quite young. Of course, that was a silly thing from today. The young kudu bulls are quite young. Nina, you're wondering if their ears could indicate whether they're nervous or not. So kudu have rather large ears. Like I said, now they prefer sort of a more vegetated habitat, so thick bush, woodland. They of course are highly adaptable, but and they have these large ears to be able to help them hear better, because they have a more chance of hearing something coming towards them rather than necessarily seeing it. So watch how they can move those ears independently. So even while they're drinking, you can see the female that's still drinking. She's got one ear facing forward and another one facing back. But being in a group like this is the best thing to do. Being an animal on your own, especially an antelope, you're not going to have an advantage. Has anyone ever seen a lesser kudu before? We're looking at the greater kudu species at the moment. I was very fortunate to see one, or a herd, which is quite a distance away, in Ruaha National Park in Tanzania. I almost leapt out of the vehicle. I was so excited. I did get a really terrible picture. I don't know, but it was still an amazing sighting. Short, but I got to see them. They're a lot more shy than the greater kudu. So there are far less of them. That wasn't a kudu barking, not its alarm call. That was Kambur. Sorry, everybody. I had to just silence the hounds. Anyways, I'm sure we'll see lots of animals. There's my morning meeting notification that I get every single day. Let's head over to Nkoro, where we have elephants that are still herbivores. I just realized that I should probably just elaborate on that. If you have just joined watching the live stream, we had a conversation earlier about imagine if all the herbivores were predators. Quite an interesting one. So that's why I said what I said. Please don't think that I'm completely incompetent. I'm a little bit. Nice family. And Egyptian geese, of course, on the water. Swimming away from the elephants, a wise choice. Sabi Sand is also a little bit cloudy and cool temperatures today too. It's looking properly dry now. It was crazy all the way until June and July. Sorry, Kambur the puppy is now the protector. Both of you, stop. That was a quick drink. But I was saying, sorry, I got distracted by the dogs, is in June and July, the bush was still quite lush with the late rains that we had. So pretty much in August or late July and August, the bush really dry out. But even saying that, there's still a lot of vegetation around. In the private reserves that are fenced, though, the vegetation will be a lot more dense, just because they have to manage the what is wrong with me now? The carrying capacity. So they can only have certain amount of animals. But here with these open ecosystems, animals are free roaming, and big herds of buffalo especially can decimate an area. But they'll do that and then they'll move off. But very helpful, of course, because not all grazers like to eat long grass. Like the wildebeest, for example, they're quite specific. They want to eat short green cropped grasses. Or I suppose they'll eat brown grass too. They don't really have a choice at this time of the year. Hello, Ella, who is just 10 years old. I'm glad you are watching. How come you're not at school? Well, where are you from, Ella? Maybe there's a time difference. Or maybe it's holidays. Who knows? I can't keep up. So you're wondering, how do elephants remember where the water is? Good question. The elephant's sense of smell is unbelievable. And they can smell it up water from many kilometers away. And because elephants are so intelligent and they live in these family groups, the older elephants that have traveled extensively also know where their water will be. And they can even remember from different times of the year when it was very, very dry, where they were still able to find water. So that information gets passed down from like the grandmothers, and all the elephants learn that. But another thing that elephants can do, if there's no water holes like this, is they'll head down towards the big rivers, and even if the sandy riverbeds are dry, they're able to dig. Can you believe that? They use their tusks to loosen the soil, they use their trunks and their feet, a combination kind of all three, and will dig these little wells. And normally the groundwater fills those holes and they don't have to dig too deep, but they'll be able to smell where the water table is at its highest. And then so many other animals will utilize that. I haven't seen it much in South Africa, but while I was in Zambia, some of the tributaries that would link to the Zambezi River quite often dried out. They were just seasonal. And after the elephants had been there, then I've seen waterbuck come in, zebra come in, and baboons all coming to utilize those little wells. Less risky than going down to the Zambezi River to drink. Plenty of crocodiles in there. But Ella, if you have any more questions, I'd love to hear from you.
Those sounds just go straight through you.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for being so patient and understanding with the dogs barking occasionally. And Trisha and Cookster, you actually said that both of your dogs got up and reacted to the barking. Sorry about that, causing much chaos. We're starting off with a great elephant day. So we are in the Sabi Sand, sort of more in the northeastern section. We're going to head further to the west and go check out Juma. Here's more elephants. I can't believe, and I say this all the time, but I cannot believe how much water this dam is holding. It's exceptional. You see, there's no drying out. Also, if you look towards those bright green trees, those are guarri trees or euclea trees, and you can see how high the water actually was. It's much further back. It has dried up quite a bit, but that's normal. And you can see there's no vegetation around, barely any vegetation around the water's edge. Constantly being trampled. Jerome, yes, the elephants quite frequently fiddle with the cameras. Most animals will. They're quite curious about them. But I have seen the elephant's trunk sort of investigating around it. And elephants are quite naughty. They'll often pull things like cameras down. And especially, have you ever heard of camera traps that are used extensively to photograph animals, a lot of the time at night, but also during the day? But they're these static cameras and they have an infrared light and it's triggered by movement. So a lot of carnivore projects or new national parks are developing sort of set them up to be able to give them an understanding of what animals might be occurring in that area. I can imagine they'll be quite shy and move away when they hear people or vehicles. So elephants will quite often go up to those camera traps and steal them. I don't know what they do with them. I don't know if they take pictures of one another or they set them up in trees to look at other things. I have no idea. So if you don't have a metal specialized casing that goes around the camera itself, because you'd normally attach it to a tree, then you could potentially lose it. The same thing goes with hyenas. Hyenas are also notorious for taking things. They just take anything, to be quite honest. But I've had lots of sightings with elephants playing with things that they probably shouldn't. Old tires. I watched some young elephants many years ago. It was an old tire from when this particular reserve was still a farm and all the vegetation had grown around it. So, when that's happened, you're constantly removing old fences and things like that. But they were tossing it up into the air and kicking it around like a soccer ball. I've also seen elephants kicking rocks about. And then one of my favorite sightings was driving into one of the greatest herds of elephants at Kariga Game Reserve. And I couldn't understand what all the little ones were standing in a circle around something with their trunks on the ground. And the next minute, one of them lifted this leather wallet into the air and shook it around. And money and cards just went flying. When the elephants moved off, we went to pick everything up, but it was very old. It had been from a few years ago. So obviously we just chopped up all the cards, and the money was, you couldn't use it. It had so much water damage to it. So again, we just also tossed it away. But quite funny. Can you blame them with such a keen sense of smell? They would constantly just keep, fiddling around and investigating with their trunks. Some nice little social interactions. You can see that slightly older elephant, just slightly older bull. Just reminding some of the youngsters that he's bigger. And now they've picked up the pace quite a bit. Lots of big cows in this group. Looks like 4 of them. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at how that one elephant fell down. This is actually so sweet. I wonder if the younger elephant off to the left will come and join in, or perhaps it's a bit intimidating, playing with the older two. Nothing too serious, of course. Play is very important. Don't boss that little one around and going back to mom, getting out of there. Bye, elephants. I'm sure we'll see some again later. Let's go to the Pilansberg Game Reserve and see what's happening at KwaMaratani. Oh my goodness, look! Egyptian geese goslings. Oh, they're so sweet. One of my favorite things about them, and I don't know if you'll all be able to see this too, is when they turn their backs towards us, you see they've got very striking two white spots, and they look like baby orcas. You have to use your imagination, but we'll see if you can get a closer view again, and you can tell me if you agree. You see that? Look at those faces. Well, not their faces, but the white spots in the back of their bodies. And I wonder if this is potentially a defense mechanism, because it does kind of look like a face. So maybe to some predators, it could look like, that the little goslings are actually looking towards them. You see a lot of animals that do that, and insects that have these almost false eyes. Another bird species you see it on is a pearl-spotted owlet. They're very sweet though. They're not teeny tiny. Probably just a few weeks old. A bit difficult for them to move through that aquatic vegetation. There are lots of things for them to nibble on though. Adults, it's a little bit easier. You see some of the younger goslings that are clever. One struggles through, and then the rest. No, man. With your bottoms in the air. And if an adult was doing that, we'd all roll our eyes. Especially if you're South African, I feel like the only time we'll say Egyptian geese are cute or sweet, using one of those words again, anthropomorphizing horribly, but sometimes we do, is when they're young like this. But this is the typical time of the year that we see a lot of goslings. Egyptian geese breed mainly in winter. There are quite a few bird species actually that will lay eggs and nest during the cooler months of the year. They're very busy at the moment. I wonder what they're getting when they stick their heads down and under the water. Well, there's one that's struggling. Maybe they are pulling that aquatic vegetation. I don't know what it is, to be quite honest. It's difficult to tell. Pulling it out of right from the bottom. It doesn't look like it's very deep there. You're getting the roots. The one on the left is actually demonstrating that quite nicely. But for the most part, Egyptian geese are grazers. You see them out of the water quite often.
love relaxing at a waterhole with the sights and sounds of Africa all around you? Well, we have some really exciting news for you. From August 1st, Africam is joining forces with WildEarth to bring the majesty of Africa right into your living room with 9 incredible new waterhole cameras from across South Africa and Kenya. Get ready to embark on a new journey. This is Live at the Waterhole.
All practicing preening. It's astounding how they just learn that behavior so quickly. Of course, a lot of it's going to be natural instinct, but they'll also learn from the adults. And they haven't grown into their feet just yet. Look how big they are. Suppose if you had small, tiny feet, though, you'd struggle to paddle in the water. I just read a message now that apparently there were 7 goslings, but now there are only 6. You know, honestly, I'm not shocked about this. Egyptian geese lay a number of eggs, but, you know, most of them won't make it to adulthood. And that's not a bad thing, because imagine if we consistently had every single animal, especially a young animal, making it towards adulthood. Be an overpopulation. So, you know, predators once again are super important for keeping the numbers down of the other animals, and Egyptian geese are a big target for a number of different predators. A lot of bird species, like African fish eagles, are experts. I mean, I don't think there's much skill required when you catch an Egyptian goose gosling, especially out in the open water. The adults are very protective and will try to defend the youngsters. But sometimes they're just not quick enough to get away. Even snakes, jackals, caracal, you name it. Any of those animals would be able to eat them. Even a water monitor or a rock monitor wouldn't say no if they could catch it. And then, Jill, you're wondering if crocodiles would attack the Egyptian geese goslings from under the water. Absolutely, 100%. You know, Egyptian goose lose all their feathers when they molt, and then they're not able to fly. And I've seen it in the Zambezi River, where they're just sitting out in open water, and then it's fair game. So 100%. Crocodiles don't say no to anything. They will eat whatever it is regardless. Gosh, we're visiting a bunch of different cameras today. We'll give the goslings a break. Let's go to Rosie's Pan in Olifants West. As you can see on the map, Rosie's Pan is also part of the Greater Kruger National Park, but just lies in the outskirts. Hello, Elephant Bull. Gonna have a drink, I'm sure. Very casual about it. Oh, it's too cold. Can't put my trunk in there. I wonder how much the temperature of the water affects the elephants from, going in. Obviously, don't see elephants swimming very often during the peak of winter. But then again, I've also seen them swimming in winter, so I wonder. Aha! Another young bull making his approach. Giving the bigger bull a wide berth. Serena, also something that's quite thought-provoking. You asked, do I think an elephant cow would be more protective than an elephant, or more aggressive, more dangerous is the word there, than an elephant bull and must? So if you don't know what the term must means, it's basically a state that elephant bulls go to when they are sexually mature, and it's just elevated testosterone that courses through their veins, if you will. And this drives the bulls to go and search for females that are in estrus. And they will move out of their sort of home range because, again, a lot of animals, including elephant bulls, don't hold territories, but they do have their favorite spots as they kind of get older. And with that, you can imagine when you're not feeding as often as you can because you're constantly looking, searching. So you do for females, so you're walking great distances. An elephant needs to consume a fair amount of its body weight every single day. You could probably become a bit agitated and annoyed. And because there's so much testosterone that's being, that is in their bodies, I think they become quite frustrated with things. So elephants have bulls and must have a bad rap for being very aggressive. This is not always the case. They're just maybe a little bit less tolerant than what they normally would be. So it's always good to just give them a bit of a wide space. But I've also had some amazing encounters with elephant bulls and must, and specifically much older bulls. It's like they know, they've been there, they've done their thing, they're not so worried about it. Think of a man that is maybe in his late 40s, early 50s. He's not really worried about fighting. He's living his best life, and is just, doesn't get agitated as quickly, doesn't want to go to a bar and box people. However, men in their in their 20s and 30s can be a nightmare. So can women. Don't shoot shots at me, but we're talking, of course, about testosterone, which obviously as women, we don't have very much of it in comparison to men. So I suppose you can compare it to something like that. Of course, musth can be suppressed by older bulls if they're in the area. So it's unlikely that a young 20-year-old bull would come into musth if there were older individuals around. A young bull in musth is going to be an absolute nightmare because they've been also bullied and their entire sub-adult lives. And now finally it's their chance. So they tend to be a little bit more on the sort of raucous side. And honestly, that's where I've had a lot of problems with elephants in musth. It's the younger bulls. So it's a tricky one to answer, Serena, because an elephant cow, right, and with other family members, because that's where we normally see them, is in herds. And if there are a lot of youngsters around, they become incredibly protective. And it's unlikely that it would just be one female. We're probably going to have a couple of females and they're all band together. And if one is agitated and frustrated, the entire herd picks up on that. I think I would maybe take my chances with an elephant bull in musth and just look out for his behavior and give him a lot of space, rather than if a breeding herd of elephants was very upset and agitated, I'd leave the sighting immediately. I would not want to stick around. There's something called misplaced aggression, and we see it in people too, but we see it in wildlife, and it's when a situation or has occurred and it's made you frustrated and really angry, or perhaps it was even scary, and then you take it out on either the next person or the next animal that you encounter. So, for example, if wild dogs run or come across a breeding herd of elephants, and wild dogs are quite cheeky anyways, the elephants will be agitated and a bit nervous for the youngsters. Not that not wild dogs could take down an elephant, but you know what I mean. And then you happen to bump into that same herd of elephants, and now they're just angry at everything. And then you could be the frustration that or be the ones that they take their frustration out of. Sorry, I jumble my words a lot. So yeah, with elephant bulls, if you're wondering how to tell if they're in musth, their whole behavior is different. They, I feel like they almost walk taller, but that's not quite the case. They just have the swagger in their step. And then if you look just above their eyes, they've got the what is wrong with me? Temporal glands, and they secrete a substance called temporin. But all elephants can secrete it, but it's quite a prominent staining. But the telltale sign is if you see them dribbling a lot of urine, and there'll be staining between their back legs and a very strong, I don't even know how to describe it, like dirty drain water and goats maybe mixed together. So worse than sometimes farmyards smell. So that's what I think, Serena. But if anybody has anything different, wants to add something, you can of course do that. Just comment away, tell me. But a great conversation to have. Here comes another elephant. So the elephant that's now in the middle, you can see how it's secreting from its temporal glands. Julius, you're wondering if elephants swallow a lot of mud while they're drinking. I don't think while they're drinking water, because if you watch the elephants, quite often they'll put their trunks and kind of stir the water to move any algae around. They sort of sift it. I'm sure there's particles, of course, that they're ingesting, because it's not like they have bottled water or anything along those lines. So yeah, and then when they take mud and toss it over themselves again, I'm sure some mud must go in there, but I don't think it's exceptional amounts. luckily for them, they have got such poor digestive systems. I don't think that a lot, that the bit of mud or soil that they do tend to ingest will really affect them. So that secretion that you can see from the elephant that's closest to the big bull, from the temporal glands, it can also be an overstimulation of adrenaline, so they could be quite excited. It means a lot of different things, and the secretion happens quite quickly. It's not something that takes hours. It probably takes minutes for it to occur, depending on the situation. But I do like how they're all giving this big bull space. And just the smaller three are interacting just ever so often. And the elephant bulls just keep coming. These youngsters could actually even be just tailing this older bull. That happens very often. Hoping to learn from him the ways of life. Oh, I've just seen an interesting comment from Sanjeev, or more a question. You're wondering if it's true that female elephants are not as well adapted in fighting predators, unlike the bulls who are constantly practicing fighting. That's an interesting one. I would say no, and the reason why I say no, but I mean, of course, we shouldn't say no to things because animals just, they do all sorts of things. But when elephant bulls are sparring with one another, or if it's a serious fight, they're fighting at a very different level from if they were trying to deter a predator of some kind. Just even think of the size of a lion, right? It's going to fit between the elephant's legs and go right underneath its belly. So then they need to be fighting lower down to the ground. And elephants will do that. In fact, that's how they quite often kill predators. That's why you also need to be very careful of elephants, because the reality is that elephants kill a lot of people. And most of the time it's because of something silly that we as humans have done. Kambul, eat my toes. Sorry. Kambul thinks it's a great game to eat my toes now. Because we never wear shoes and hood spray. And so female elephants, I feel like, are a lot more protective. These big bulls tend to be more tolerant of predators. I think they just know their sheer size. And predators don't typically bother the big elephant bulls. But they might go after young calves in a herd. There's quite a few prides of lions that actively hunt young elephants. So what the cows will typically do, they stand in a protective circle and they all charge in the direction. All the little ones will stay in the middle. And, the elephant can, if it's pinned an animal down, it will actually go down onto its knees and tusk it into the ground. So I would say that it's probably a fair game, but it's more likely that an elephant cow is going to kill a predator rather than a bull, just because of all the reasons that I explained. But again, just my opinion, just what I'm thinking. That's what we're here to do. We think out loud. I never think that I'm always right. That's just from personal experiences. And from everything that I've learned over the last 11 years of being in the guiding industry and conservation and all those things in between, is that, and like I said, animals just do what they want when they want. We cannot put them and the behavior in a box. So people always get frustrated with me because I very rarely can give a yes or no answer. I have to talk about, well, if they were in this situation, or what if. Some people just don't quite understand it and get annoyed with me. But I can't do it. I can't, you know what I mean. Oh, and then Wally, you've actually said, are female elephants not more nurturing? Absolutely. But towards their own species and towards their youngsters and other females in the herd. But other than that, not particularly. They can be feisty. So quite often what safari guides have to do in their career, and all guides that guide in areas with their elephants will come across these situations, is that younger bulls, for example, like these individuals here, and some even older than that, become quite rowdy. And because they have been bullied and they've been suppressed by the older bulls, I say bullied, but I mean, I actually, it's not the correct term. But when they're in their natal herds and they become, quite bossy, and then they push a lot of the youngsters around and cause all sorts of havoc, and then the cows don't tolerate that and they reprimand them. I mean, to the point where they even push them over and onto the ground and will tusk them too, not quite kill them, but a serious warning. And I forgot what I was talking about. Why does my brain do that? Where was I going with that? Was it still about elephants being more nurturing? No, I can't remember. Someone has to remind me. Please tell me other people do this too. It's gone. Thought is gone out of my mind. It's like I wasn't even talking about anything. So frustrating. Wally, you've put disciplined question mark. I'm so sorry why I did that. I was going to get to something. Obviously, I've always have a backstory before I can just get to the answer. Why was I talking? Oh, yes. Okay, I remember. Oh, thank you for being patient. So everything that guides would potentially experience. So with the younger bulls, again, being a bit on the rowdy side and bossed around by every other elephant, what they try and do is dominate over other animals, whether it is chasing larger mammals around, but they very often will come up to vehicles and size the vehicles up. And it's super important while those elephants are younger that we don't drive away or react too erratically, because this could cause future problems. And again, it's important that you understand animal behavior, specifically elephant behavior, to know when it's the right time to move and when it's the right time to stand your ground. But your voice is also really powerful. So you don't need to let the elephant get right up to the car, right? With its tusks over the bonnet or the hood of the car. You can use your voice and quite often and stop them. Sometimes I even just put my hand up and they tend to stop and relax. And that's also fine. Of course, you can also just go, hey, or tap the side of your car just to get them to stop. But that's an individual preference. Me personally, I don't enjoy it. Not because I'm scared. I try to be as respectful as I can to wildlife. And obviously, we're not perfect, and I have made a lot of mistakes. But as I've got older, I've definitely learned how to handle situations more appropriately. But again, that just comes down to experience. So depending on what's going on, I'll form an imaginary line in my mind. And I'll say, okay, when that elephant gets to that point, especially if it's a young bull coming over to cause trouble, and you can see it from a mile away, I will tell it I don't want it to come any closer. And I don't have to scream and shout at the top of my voice. They respond fairly well, unless it's an elephant that has been reprimanded or had these interactions quite regularly with people. Then you need to get a bit creative. And so typically what they'll do is they'll stop and maybe they move around again, but keep an eye on them because they go, I'm just going to sneak around the car and then I'm going to come at you again. And not that they're going to knock the vehicle over, but again, it's just to try and intimidate you. So you've got to keep watching them. But as soon as you have told them off once, it's like they go, I've been spotted. My plan is ruined. So it's quite entertaining to watch. And it was one of my favorite things to do with students, in fact. Elephants are one of the animals, the only animal that I really think you need to worry about in the bush, especially while you're in a vehicle, because things can go wrong very quickly. So it's important that people get comfortable and learn animal behavior, and specifically elephant behavior. And the only way to do that is to watch. Of course, you can read books about it and then hopefully witness that behavior in real life. And then also to be in situations where you need to handle them. Because it's terrifying. Your heart sinks to your feet. Your palms are sweaty. Sometimes you do the white knuckle thing where you're holding onto the steering wheel. So long, we've all got to start somewhere. But you can't be the most scared person in the vehicle, especially when you've got a bunch of guests. So it's good that you've maybe had some practice. And I'm not saying to go and, entice an elephant to react badly. That's not the case at all. But more often.
Are you WildEarth's biggest fan? Well, we have a brand new competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search #WildEarthFanOfTheMonth and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily.
when you're on a safari with a trained safari guide are very slim, but accidents can happen. So like I said, we're imperfect and we can make mistakes. And also, animals are just as agitated. They have personalities and things frustrate them too. So you could just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So we do a safety briefing. We do like a pre-briefing where guides will learn kind of questions to ask guests and to tell them. One of the big things we often ask in private medical conditions, just to make sure no one's allergic to bees or is diabetic and has to take medicine while they're out there. If we've got malaria tablets, we just remind them to bring everything like that. Even if you're pregnant, it's a good one and very important to tell your guides. It can be very bumpy out there. Or back problems. Obviously the list is endless. But then also what to bring, bring a hat. If you've got some sunscreen, definitely recommend that along. There'll be water on the vehicles, we'll be stopping for sundowners a bit later. Bring your cameras, make sure batteries are charged. So we run through a bunch of different things. But there's no set protocol. Imagine having to remind people about everything again. You'd sit and for 30 minutes, and there's nothing worse than spending so much time on like a pre-brief. And then you get the safety briefing. So my safety briefings are pretty short depending on the guest experience. I don't want to sit there and go on and on and on when people are in the vehicle, because that's typically when it's done, and just want to get out on safari, right, and see wildlife. Also, people's attention span is quite short, and I mean that not in a disrespectful way, but you're just excited. There's a lot going on. So I just mentioned a couple of things, most importantly, don't stand up or stick your hands out of the cars and try and entice the animals to come closer in any way. Also, don't stick your hands out when we drive past bushes. You know what it's like. You want to put your hand out and feel the leaves, except a lot of the trees bite. And they've got thorns and spines, so you don't want to do that for the wrong one. I remind everybody to keep drinking water and to apply sunblock, but I do that throughout the drive as well. And
discover the wonders of the wild with Safari Snaps, Africam's fun community game. While enjoying the live streams, simply tag the animal you spot. Each tag earns you points based on the rarity of the species. The rarer, the more points you score. Your profile and the Safari Snaps leaderboard will keep track of your impressive tagging skills. Join us on Safari Snaps and let's celebrate the wonders of African wildlife together.
Sorry, I just disappeared there for a second because the little lab Kambur was breaking into his food box. He's a warthog. He makes warthog sounds and he just wants to eat all the time. I saw earlier there were a couple of comments and questions about what this particular waterhole was like during the drought. Seeing as I was saying, that the amount of water that we've seen in the last year and a half has been exceptional. It was so dry, there really wasn't much left of it. 2015, 2016 were really bad, and going into 2017, but we had a little bit more rain, and then finally 2018 arrived, and we had a sufficient amount of rain to top everything up. But yeah, it was dire. Even Buffelshoek Dam, which is just further north and a bit to the east from where Djuma Dam is, or Vuyatela Dam is, that also just shrunk to a small puddle. So it was terrible to see. A lot of the animals moved towards the Manyeleti River and the Sand River. The Sand River specifically, as the name suggests, it is quite sandy. It's very wide. A lot of Phragmites grass species growing around, so they had some vegetation to feed on, but then also because it's so sandy, as I was explaining earlier, they would be able to get water by digging down into the sand. Jenna from the UK, you're wondering if elephant's tail contains bone. There are some bones that will go into the tail. Obviously, not particularly big ones, but then yeah, I suppose they're very tightly connected. Those bones. Do you know what? I've never seen an elephant's tail. I've seen dead elephants before, which is sad, caused by poaching, not in South Africa. But I've never seen one cut open. And I know this sounds quite macabre, but I'd actually like to, so I can understand the anatomy of the tail a little. Yeah, so if you Google the bone structure of elephants, you can see those tightly knit bones. I suppose it's like a cow's tail when you have oxtail. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. Sort of rounded. Well, that's what I imagine anyways. Well, they've moved on. Just a blacksmith lapwing lingering around. Be nice to see some terrapins. It could potentially be all around the water's edge. Maybe see little heads poking up. Is that a terrapin on the right? I think there's like a log sticking out the water. It could also be a log, but it's right at the edge of the frame in the water. And I can see a rounded shape and a little head going up. So maybe that is a terrapin. We'll have a closer look. There's the terrapin. I was right. I tend to play the game log or not, and quite often it's a log and not an actual animal. Not very good at that, but there's a little terrapin sitting up on the edge. We get two species of terrapin. We get the marsh terrapin and then the hinge terrapin. Serrated hinge terrapin. Sorry, I forgot what it was called for a second. With the marsh terrapins being quite large, but it's almost impossible to tell them apart unless you've got a really, really close view. I love sitting on this dam wall. There's a dead tree that's in the water. We won't have a look at it, but quite far to the right-hand side. And there are normally terrapins that have climbed onto part of it, sunning themselves. We also see lots and lots of reptiles, from monitor lizards to some of the diurnal geckos. Oh, the electricity's just come back on. Thank you, load shedding. Oh, we might hear all sorts of Tucker's shouting. It's the swimming pool. Calm down. The pump of the swimming pool is obviously just turned on, and everybody needed to react to that. Sometimes you even see terrapins on hippos. Yes, Dreamcatcher, you are 100% right. Terrapins don't smell wonderful. Obviously, we try to avoid handling animals in general, right? Except our pets, can't help but cuddle them. But typically people would learn the hard way by picking up a terrapin. So they've actually got stink glands between their front and back legs, which secretes a very foul-smelling scent, and there is no product in this world that can remove that smell. I've tried everything. I've tried vinegar, I've tried lemon juice, I've even made a scrub using sugar, like dishwashing liquid, washing powder. Nothing takes the smell away, and it's revolting, and it lasts for a day or two. I suppose it's actually a good way to diet because you don't want to put anything near your mouth. I should go and touch that one. But anyways, so that's a defense mechanism. So tortoises have something very different. Tortoises don't have stink glands, but as a defense mechanism, they have a storage compartment which they will store water and urine in. This obviously helps during dry times. They don't have to necessarily drink water, but if they are frightened, they will release it. And it's also not the greatest smell, but nowhere near the scent of a oh my goodness, what am I trying to say? Of the terrapin. And then also what female tortoises will do is they'll release that liquid too to soften the soil if they're going to dig down in it to lay their eggs. Fascinating creatures. But terrapins have a varied diet. They like to pull ticks off of animals like buffalo that come around here. They eat fish, aquatic vegetation, all sorts of stuff. And there's one tortoise species, the hinge tortoise, and they like to eat millipedes. They're just so funny. Hello, Impala. It's been a while since I've seen a nice herd of them. Looks like there's just one male in this group. And oh, it doesn't even look very big, to be quite honest. Bossing the females around, I suppose, because maybe he didn't get a chance to mate with them during the rutting season. It's obviously too late for the sort of second rut. There's a bit of green vegetation where the impalas are feeding. I don't know if there's been any rain in the Sabi Sand. A little downpour, perhaps. So I can't tell what that vegetation is. Is it grass? Some of it might be grass, and then probably most of it is a little like herbaceous plant that might not be particularly tasty. One that they'd probably give a skip during the summer months. We're going to let the impala just enjoy their day, and we're going to head over to Jamala in Madikwe. And of course, there's lots of elephants. I'm surprised we haven't been to Jamala yet. Over the last couple of days, we've spent so much time here. There's been a lot of action. Of course, all the ellies swimming. Lots of babies this time. Hello, little calves. And then I'm sure everyone knows, if you've been watching, you know that I'm going to ask, can we pan to the left so we can see the zebra carcass? I'm fascinated by it. I just want to see how long it's going to take to completely deteriorate, because it's quite a long time for a carcass. It feels like it's been mainly fed upon by brown hyenas and warthogs. Gee whiz, look at all those elephants. Where's it gone? No, I think it was just above and to the left of where those elephants were, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. If we zoom in a bit, there we go. That's perfect. I'm pretty sure that's where the carcass was, right? Or am I going completely crazy? I'll just scan around. Maybe it was a bit further to the left. Looks like there's some house sparrows. Not grey-headed sparrows. I don't know why I say things. No, it's gone. It's not here anymore. I wonder what took it. It could have been dragged away by a brown hyena, or any kind of hyena really, or another predator. I highly doubt the warthogs would have taken it to their burrow. They would be quite scary too if they were completely carnivorous. Whee! It's doing a quick 360 view. Look at all those zebras too. It's quite difficult to control these cameras. Very sensitive. That's a lovely view. Dorian, you're wondering, are bigger herds of sort of bachelor groups of male elephants more respected by the females? Nah, not necessarily. I think the females, they don't tolerate the younger bulls as much as the Ascaris. However, they'll be more receptive to big, dominant, big male bulls, essentially, because those are the ones that they want to breed with. But even then, when the males, they come through, again, they just kind of throw their weight around, and they're sort of a bit brute. And they can also unsettle the breeding herd, so then the breeding herd might show some aggression back towards them. So not necessarily. We don't see bachelor groups or big bachelor groups of elephants anymore. The last time I saw a really impressive group was actually down at Sabi Sabi in the southern Sabi Sands. I dropped guests off at Skukuza, which is quite a distance away from where the lodge is. And I was driving back, and as I entered the southern section of the reserve where Earth Lodge is located, I couldn't believe my eyes. I started to see all these elephant bulls. I saw some youngsters, and as I kind of moved forward really slowly, there were massive marula trees, and quite a few of them closely together. And there must have been 10 big elephant bulls, like impressive tusks, large in body size, between maybe the ages of 30 and 45. Never mind however many young bulls were also lingering around them. I couldn't even count how many there were. And since then, I haven't seen any bigger groups of male elephants. Obviously, we see at Oldonyo, though, the live camera in Kenya, we see lots of elephant bulls associating with one another. But they don't necessarily follow each other around, especially the bigger bulls. They tend to do their own thing. Well, for the most part, anyways. Also, I just realized, I could be sitting in the swimming pool right now and none of you would even know it. I'm not yet, at least. I did have a little chocolate break, though, just to keep those energy levels up. Mr. HUAE, you said yesterday a spotted hyena, or a clan of them, moved the carcass. Ah, very interesting. Thank you for that insight. That's very cool. I just didn't even see a drag mark there. I was hoping then we could see one, but a bit on the difficult side. There we go. Mystery solved, though. This is why I don't sleep at night, because I ponder about all these mysteries in the bush. No, just joking. I don't do that. Decides on what name to give an animal or bird. Hang on, we're glitching a bit. Let me hold on that question. Okay, I'll ask it again. Sorry about that, everybody. So Warren, you get to hear me say your name a lot today. Who gets to decide on what animals should be named? So it will depend on the lodge. Obviously, we don't go out and name every single animal. Can you imagine if we tried to give all these springbuck names now? Goodness, and how would you remember them? Because they all look fairly similar. So it depend on the lodges and the guides that decide that. So again, and every reserve is going to be different too. So there's no blanket rule as to what happens. Like, for example, there's this one elephant that I used to see all the time at Pridelands, and I don't know why I dubbed her Susan. And then it was just kind of stuck because we saw her every day, but that's not officially her name. It was really just a pet name. And then there's Fang, Also an elephant who has a tusk that curves back towards her chest. And she's quite a well-known individual in the Sabi Sands. I used to see her when I was working at Sabi Sabi, and then I got to see her at Djuma again. Oh, Springbok having a bit of a tussle. And then, of course, the most famous animals that are named are leopards, lions, packs of wild dogs, cheetah, you name it. There are also these big carnivore projects like Panthera, but they don't typically name them. They will have an identification number. So it could be like lion male LM1962, something like that. But obviously, nobody associates to LM1962. So I'm quite conflicted about naming animals, and there's going to be a lot of people who don't agree with me. I think it, I think it was a good thing because it got people to, fall in love with wildlife and fall in love with specific individuals. And there's obviously interesting stories about them. You can learn about the lineage and just all those types of things, and it truly is it's spectacular. However, I think sometimes people have taken it to the extreme where they treat these animals like they're their pets, and I think that's not great because with conservation, certain issues need to be dealt in a specific situation by professionals. And then a lot of people on the internet fight them, but don't understand the root cause. And these conservation organizations don't need to explain absolutely everything, but it's sad for them that they get torn apart when making certain decisions because accidents happen, of course, and certain things, of course, can be prevented too. So it really just depends on the scenario. So sometimes I think it gets a little bit hectic, but we will always name animals. We as humans cannot help ourselves. So I'm definitely pro it, but then also, I sit on the fence, and I don't sit on the fence very often, but I sit on the fence for this because I love understanding the history of a leopard, for an example, one individual. Um, yeah, it makes this, story quite interesting. And then you get people who go on safari and then they literally want to come back to see a specific pride of lions and see them all the time, or a leopard. And that's what draws them to come back on safari. Of course, I'm sure they had a great experience. Seems to be some arguing amongst the springbuck. Quite difficult to tell females and males apart because they both have horns. But males' horns are going to be a lot thicker and longer. Females' horns will be kind of quite slight, sort of more narrow.
On Woodbury Lodge's episode of Destination Safari.
I'm so used to views I forget to mention it sometimes. Underfloor heating in the bathrooms, air conditioning, all those luxury items.
Dinner is a full three-course meal, starter, main and dessert.
Early morning drive, and on that drive you might see some slightly different things, some rare things.
Destination Safari, bringing luxury safari travel to the world.
fairly quiet. Hasn't been too much around this waterhole. Lots of springbuck. Obviously, we had kudu a little bit earlier. But that's kind of been it. I'm also looking for any more birds along the edge of the waterhole, but no luck. Oh my goodness, look at all the... Are those kudu or impala that are coming on the left? Oh no, it's impala. Sometimes it's so hard to see the animals, especially when you're at such a distance. It's a big herd. Much bigger than the herd that we've just seen. Also an oryx moving right in. That must be so nice and refreshing. I think what we'll probably do is give Jamala another bash and enjoy the elephants. Oh, now some of them are moving off. There'll definitely be some stragglers though. So hopefully they stick around. At least there's room now for the zebras to come down and have a drink. It was a bit quiet earlier. It's also so nice just to enjoy these silent moments watching the animals. I've talked so much today. Speaking of elephants and Susan, Siv, you said the last time you saw Susan was it January? No, February, sorry, 13th of February in 2021. I have definitely seen her since, and I'm just trying to think the last time I was at Pridelands. I wasn't there for the live safaris, but I think it was that Eco Training Guides or was it live safaris? I can't really remember. But that would have been last year. I think I was there March or April. And I think that was the last time I saw her. And then no one else really follows her. And there's a lot of new instructors at Eco Training, so they have no idea who she even is. Oh, that's cool. I have water monitors. You might be able to hear the scurrying on the roof, chasing one another. Wild living where I live.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to capture a snapshot of wildlife in its magnificence? Our naturalist, James Henry, has spent his life creating memories through the lens, and he wants to share them with you.
From the sublime to the ridiculous, everybody.
Join James for a photography hangout where he will entertain you with safari stories through some of his best photographs and color grade them live. Come along for the fun. Wild Earth, it's in your nature.
I think there's just going to be an influx of elephants throughout the entire day. Just coming to cool down and drink. Plenty of elephants at Madikwe. I love that elephant just at the back. It's actually the new species, the red-rumped elephants, a subspecies that sometimes you see, or you can see two of them at the moment, but there are normally quite a few more. I'm mostly just talking nonsense, but that's a great rubbing post there. Like the perfect height to get in between the legs. Well, at least for that elephant. Big shake of the head. Oh, look at this. Did you see how that elephant, that young bull, I don't know what happened there, but the elephant cow sort of moved through and then everybody went their separate ways. So you can see how annoying he's being. No one's really interested in him. He's got no chance at mating with any of the females. And in fact, he should not be hanging around with the herds. He's kind of ruined the pool party. Charlotte, you're wondering if a venomous snake bit an elephant, would it be affected by it? Would it survive? I definitely think so. I mean, an elephant is such a large animal, and I wonder if it would depend where it gets bitten. I think young elephants would be more susceptible. But the genetic makeup of an elephant has got these genes that that kind of pick up on, I suppose, not so much injuries, but defects, and I can't think of my words now. It's so hot. But anyways, and like, for example, that helps prevent cancer, and that's why elephants, they think, don't really get tumors. So I wonder if that would potentially play a role in combating it. I haven't recalled anyone ever talking about an elephant that's died of a snake bite. Not from anybody doing an necropsy. But let's ask the interweb. Shall we do that? Showing that young little calf. Wee, off you go. I mean, how's that? That young calf ran towards the young bull, as if to show him how big he is. He's not very big at all. And then mom had to come in and intervene. So there you can see the how then, I mean, we can't call that nurturing behavior. But you see how they're not tolerant of these younger bulls. Those cows will constantly keep pushing them away, and that's eventually what drives the sub-adult bulls to, well, not sub-adults, but young bulls, to go out and move further away from the herd. So that's what I was talking about earlier. It's nice that we're able to witness that behavior. Might happen again. She's just keeping an eye on him. You're giving her a wide berth. Wise decision, young man. Lots of chatter though coming from the lodge. Wonder what they're talking about. And then they
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth Schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of Sunset Safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Elephants are really funny to watch. And that young one's just plopped itself down on its bottom. So happy to be in the water. One elephant cow having a smell around, sussing things out before she has another drink. Look at the herd of elephants just right at the back. Looks like they've also all just stopped for a siesta. Why don't you go and stand in the shade? Not that the trees behind them could provide much shade at all. Surely there's somewhere they can go. I mean, it looks like a big boerbean, a scotia on the right-hand side that provides quite a bit of shade. I'd rather go stand there. But maybe they're happy and feeling nice and refreshed after the mud bath. And a drink that obviously quenched their thirst. See, the elephants keep putting their trunks up. I wonder what scent they're picking up. Oh, these three are having the best time now. I'd be in there with them. Here's another interesting question. Thank you so much for all of you commenting and asking plenty questions. It's about if elephants can switch herds. Unlikely. And normally, the members of a breeding herd are closely related individuals, so the females. Um, I'm sure there are exceptions to this rule, of course. I think that would be quite a difficult thing unless it was a group of elephants that were being consistently studied and those individuals were known and then a behavior like that occurred. But I would say no. Obviously, with elephant bulls, they have a much looser social structure with one another, so they'll move freely in between breeding herds, but then mainly other bulls. Yeah, I'm actually not even sure if somebody has witnessed something like that. But we see the sort of animosity between other elephants when you come down to a waterhole, for an example. And some herds will happily drink with one another, but perhaps they've associated with each other before. And then other times, one breeding herd will chase another away. So it's kind of like mixed emotions there. Look at all these little elephants, all in the mud. Don't get stuck. You can see how deep it is. But if one does get stuck, the entire herd will rush on over and try and pull it out. Look how many elephants are here now. This is crazy. And normally, as you know, dry season is upon us, they're not always tolerant around a water hole with other elephants because obviously they want their members of the herd to get the maximum amount of drinking time and then, of course, water. But maybe it's because the different groups of elephants are all doing something different. They're not all trying to drink. Some are having a mud bath. Oh gosh, those little elephants charging and slipping and falling. And then others, yeah, they mud bath and then they go and have a dust bath or a siesta, like that group is doing in the back. Or so that elephant came in quite aggressively. So I think that's actually quite a good, oh my gosh, they're doing exactly what we're saying. So here's an elephant cow. She charged on in. Not very many elephants that were drinking really reacted to her. And then a cow did come and push her. And then an even bigger elephant cow came through and threw her weight around too. So I don't necessarily think that they're part of the same herd. Look at this. See, now she's picking on some younger individuals. Let's see what happens. Look how sorry, everybody, for the picture breakup. Look how that big cow is going in to kind of sort out the trouble there. She's saying, get away, wait your turn. And then she is just moving away at the back. Still going after her, saying, there's a great South African word that you could probably use to describe this. It does start with a V. So anyone from South Africa will know what I'm talking about. Gosh, there's so much commotion here. There's so much going on with all of these elephants. But let's head back to Pilanesberg Game Reserve and see what's happening at Kwamaratani. More elephants. What a surprise, in the words of James Henry. All just splishing and splashing about. Wait, move away from those sticks so we can see you nicely. I wonder if they're going to bump into the lions. I don't know how far the lions move back. I think they moved off a little bit further to the right, though. So we'll see what these elephants do. Maybe we get some action. There goes one elephant charging off, but I don't know if that might have just been the depression that it thought it would run through. You know, those lines could potentially move off, or they could also just sit there quietly. If the elephants don't know they're there, they might not want to give up their shady spot. Big cats are notorious for doing that. If they're not seen, they might just hold their ground and sit very quietly. If they don't have the wind in their favor, that of course could change things. I can't believe we don't. Oh, I suppose I can't say that because I haven't spent much time at this camera. But something we should also keep an eye out for on these overhanging branches is maybe some striated herons or greenback herons. They keep changing their name back and forth. Maybe even some kingfisher species. That would be nice to look for. Maybe we'll try again tomorrow earlier in the morning and see if there's anything. But those are perfect branches. You see both of those species of birds and many others. And we can get quite close too. Also, look at the new growth that you can see on this tree. Bright green leaves. Spring has definitely sprung. We had so much wind the other day. We're here in Hoedspruit. And as you know, the knobthorn trees are flowering at the moment, but there's not one knobthorn tree that is sort of right on my doorstep. We're probably like 30 meters away or so. And I left a window open just to let a breeze come through. I could not believe it when I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, okay, that's a bit windy. Let's close the window. There was pollen everywhere, but some pieces of the flowers, they covered the entire floor. I was not impressed the next day when I had to sweep it all up. I sneezed the entire way through it too. And off they go. These elephants are making me thirsty. Okay, bye, elephants. Enjoy your feeding. I think what we're probably going to do is spend the last 15 minutes watching all the elephants at Jamala. Oh my goodness, there's just more and more and more. So just like we saw chaos just a moment ago with that female, trying to barge on in, I think we can keep a lookout for similar interactions. The younger elephants will be more tolerant of one another. So much. Yowza, did you all hear that? Very angry elephant. Once again, just pushing another individual away. I didn't see if it was another cow, if it was a young bull. How many elephants do you think are here? Maybe like 50? Maybe even a bit more. I can't see all the young ones. Difficult to count them. Oh, I'd say maybe 50 or maybe between 50 and 70. We just do a wider estimation. Oh, look at the giraffe. Let's see what happens. And if this giraffe is brave enough to come and drink amongst all the elephants, maybe we can have a slightly tighter view. The giraffe is thinking about it. Is it worth the risk? It's a female giraffe that's coming down. I think it's wise to move to the other side where there's not as much congestion, although there were still some elephants around that side. And as we've seen, we know that most of these animals will quite happily coexist with one another. Well, they don't really have a choice. But from El Doño, you've seen so many different animal species all drinking amongst one another. I don't know how often these water holes get, crowded. Now, you've seen the zebra kind of keep a distance from the elephants. So I'm not sure if they're going to be as tolerant as the bulls in El Doño. Dream Wild, you have asked, why do giraffe always seem so shy and nervous? Not necessarily. They're quite regal, and they just kind of take their time. There's no hurry for them. They're also, they like to sort of suss things out. But I wouldn't necessarily say they look shy or nervous. Like in this situation here, there's just a lot going on. So the giraffe is weighing up its options right now. Is it going to stand and wait for the elephants to move off? But I think there's just going to be a continuous influx of elephants just coming down to drink. She's like, where am I going to drink? Am I going to go off to her right? Or am I going to maybe head off to the other side where there could potentially be a puddle? But also it's going to get a bit tricky now with there being so much mud around. I mean, giraffe don't necessarily want to get knee deep into the mud. If they can avoid it, they will. So that might also be determining where she might drink. She's lowering her head quite a bit. Go where the zebra are. They don't seem to have been bothered. There we go. She's happy with that spot. No one seems to be bothering her just yet, but let's give it some time. That might change. So speaking of mud, Terry, you're wondering if giraffe can quite easily get stuck in the mud. It's not that I've ever seen one get stuck in the mud, but what has happened a couple of times is giraffe getting stuck in rivers. There was a sighting not too long ago at Kariga Game Reserve in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, where a giraffe tried to cross the Bushman's River and ended up getting stuck. And then they actually intervened and helped pull it out. So, I mean, as tall as they are, I don't think giraffe are as sure-footed, say, something like an elephant. We look at the different, you've seen the elephants with, obviously they got much wider feet. They're quite happy to go right into the mud. Whether a giraffe would slip or not, I can't say. I just haven't seen them going into very muddy areas, but maybe somebody else has.
Not everyone gets excited to hear a leopard chuff, spot a pangolin, or see a real impala rut. But if you are wild about the wild, you can become part of a community of like-minded nature lovers and share authentic wildlife experiences with the world. Join the Explorers Club and you will also enjoy the many benefits that come with it too. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
There we go. You can see more and more elephants just coming down from the tree line. It looks like a different herd that hasn't had a drink yet. So now this one cow is sort of, you can see she's shaking her head, suppose telling everybody we will be coming down to have a drink now. So not impressed with that giraffe. Sort of swung her trunk towards it. But they also waited patiently, before coming down. Maybe they were waiting for a gap. Oh my goodness, there's a tiny little elephant on the right-hand side. It's just behind some other individuals. They look so small. With Madikwe being such a large property, so it's at about 70,000 hectares. I always like to guess the conversion to acres. It's like almost 170,000 acres. Did I do it right? Someone tell me, help me. They obviously there's a high carrying capacity for elephants. Difficult in the winter months. A lot of the vegetation loses all of its leaves. You can see how everybody's moving away from that bull on the right, giving him space as he pushes on through to have a drink. Look at them. Those that look like sound like the cows that are just vocalizing how frustrated they are with what's going on around where the pump is. Dreamwild, I think everybody can agree with you. I've just said that there have been plenty of elephants. And you also love how this day has gone. Me too. We see some nice quiet moments, just enjoying. But we have seen some really interesting behaviors today. And we will, of course, be on the lookout for more every single day. But sadly, I've only got 2 more shows. Hopefully, there'll be more of you watching on the weekend. So I look forward to engaging with all of you. But it's time for me to say goodbye. So until tomorrow, I'll see you soon.